Welcome, jesters. One thing I am continually surprised by, although by this point I should not be, is our friends on the left's ability to not really understand human relationships or the relationships that exist between two people, even in a personal level or a professional level. And this goes, in particular, recently, for the relationship between President Trump and Elon Musk. Apparently, Elon did an interview. I saw some excerpts from it the other day where, he talked about all the things that he wanted to, but then he got roped into talking about his work with the administration and the president. On that, I will say, Elon, you haven't learned about the press by now. I know they probably invited you to talk about SpaceX and Tesla and everything, but you didn't think they weren't going to try and get Trump? Yeah, look, I'm sure he knew, and he was ready for it, so that's not really the problem. But this did give Elon an opportunity to talk about, government efficiency, Department of Government Efficiency, in ways that he's always been talking about them recently, by comparing them to the DMV and other agencies that people chronically have a problem with. Now, even if you have a state, or even if you live in a state where it's run okay, like here in Florida, you just know it can be done better. Because as good as the system here is here in Florida, it's nothing like pass holder services at a theme park. And we know this. So government can always be more efficient. Yet every time we try to make government more efficient, the Democrats and our friends on the left see this as nothing more than some giant conspiracy to cut vital services that millions of Americans depend on. But more on that later. But no, we are just trying to make government more efficient. And in the context of what he has said and what he said during the interview and even afterwards, I just need to let you know that adults can disagree and still work together. Elon is apparently not a big fan of the big, beautiful bill. I agree. I'm not particularly a fan of it either. I think it should cut even more. I would like to see the DOGE changes in that bill, but they're not. But that's okay. We need to make progress, and as adults, we can disagree on things and continue to work together in the future. And no, I'm sorry, some negative comments during an interview is not why he left the administration. Again, I am always shocked at how some very simple facts that we all seem to know for a very long time just goes right over their head, our friends on the left. Elon was a temporary government employee or on a temporary contract basis, a billet that can only last 180 days. He was always going to leave. That's it. Sorry, the prompter went to sleep. Anyway, I do need to change that. Where was I? Yes, he was always going to exit. He was always a temporary employee. So no, his criticism of Donald Trump does not mean that he was kicked out of the administration. That's it. And no, it does not mean that there is widespread instability within the Trump administration, right? Especially compared to the last one, where you had secretaries mysteriously disappearing for weeks and nobody knew where they were, okay? Yes, Donald Trump, there is no instability in the administration. Donald Trump is running the administration. And yes, there are disagreements within the administration. But you know what? Adults, actual, real professionals can have disagreements. They hash it out, and then they continue to work together. That's it. He was not kicked out over some comments in an interview. The Trump administration, right, despite your fantasy view of the Trump administration, it is not a boys' club. It is not centered around Donald Trump. Well, it is, because he's the president, but it is not a cult. It is a bunch of adults, actual professional adults. They can disagree. They work it out. And then they continue to work together. You know I'm right.